Welcome back. We're live until 12:30. Up next, we meet the woman who put on a whopping 8 stone in just 6 months because of an underactive thyroid. Her shocking warning to others is next. February 2001, just weeks after getting married, Ali Jagger suffered a miscarriage whilst on honeymoon in Australia. From that moment, something in her body started to change.
Well, Ali ballooned from a size 8 to a size 20, putting on an incredible 8 stone in weight in just 6 months.
A year later, a blood test finally revealed Ali had an underactive thyroid. She joins us now along with Dr. Chris. Good morning to both of you.
Morning.
So, Ali, up until when you went on honeymoon and sadly suffered this miscarriage, I mean, you were a very active person. You were working really hard, completely just, well, totally different to what you became, basically.
Absolutely, yeah. I'd never been to the doctors, never been ill at all.
And you didn't even know you were pregnant, did you?
No, that was a surprise, actually, obviously, when I had the miscarriage, yeah.
So you're on honeymoon and this happens.
Yes.
So you've got to gather yourself together after something like that anyway.
Sure.
And as you say, you know, you've got a northern background, so you dusted yourself off and said, right, OK, stuff and nonsense, let's get on with this.
Yeah.
So how long before you noticed, actually, things aren't right here?
I think probably about 2 or 3 months afterwards, to be honest. And from being always a very sort of, you know, hard-working person with bags of energy, full of beans, I found myself slowing down. And I knew something wasn't right, and then the weight started creeping on, and, you know, I'd always been very fit and active, and there was no explanation for that either. And I think probably in the course of about 2 or 3 months, I must have put on 2 stone. So that was quite dramatic.
And you're thinking, I'm not doing anything different.
No,
I'm just
not at all.
Feeling right.
Completely.
And you had swollen ankles, they were starting to swell up a bit.
Yeah, for no reason at all, you know. And so those were the sort of first symptoms, which now I know what I know, are the sort of the first signs of hypothyroidism. But I went to the doctors initially with those concerns, and also having heavy periods, which I'd never had before. And I think the problem for me was that he focused on the miscarriage rather than the other 3 really strong symptoms that I was suffering. So first of all, I got told to lose weight.
Which is always a horrible
particularly
thing,
helpful. And then went away for a couple of months, went back again, and he referred me to Harley Street to a gynaecologist. But of course, that's completely the wrong path to go down, really, for me.
And you're beginning to feel worse and worse.
Oh,
the weight is increasing even more.
Yeah.
And it got to the stage where, I mean, you say that you're finding work tough, your voice was getting deeper, I mean, you were changing as a person.
Oh my God, yeah, my hair was falling out. I mean, the scariest thing for me was I was in what I call now my sort of thyroid fog, where from being a really switched on person and always sort of, you know, just being very fired up and positive about life, I was in a fog of nothingness.
Well, you paid £500 to go privately.
Yeah,
and,
I did.
And even then, nothing was found.
Well, yeah, but of course that was to see a gynaecologist. So gynaecologically, there was nothing wrong with me. So that was just a bit of a bum steer, really.
And you were almost like a sort of prisoner trapped within your own body in a way, because you weren't the person that you were before.
Absolutely.
You couldn't do the things you did before. You didn't want to do the things you did before.
No, not at all, not at all.
And how, I mean, obviously you were newly married at this stage as well.
Yes.
So how did your husband react to this?
Well, he was supportive. I've got a lovely, lovely, lovely husband. You know, I would say if I could clone my husband, I'd make a fortune. He's fantastic. And he was supportive, but in a way we were both really, we didn't know which direction to go in. And I think when you go and see a GP and your GP says, you know, it's probably your fault, or, you know, we'll refer you to a gynaecologist, you're kind of stuck and you don't know what to do you?
Well, it's that horrible situation, isn't it, where if you do put on weight and you're honestly saying, I'm not raiding the fridge every night.
Absolutely.
And yet people always go, well, you don't get that big without eating loads. And you fit and it's embarrassing.
Indeed it is. And I think, you know, it was interesting because when the story first got picked up by the Daily Mail, and when I was researching the article for this, you know, I spoke to a couple of GPs and they said, yeah, it was really bad what happened to you, but there's no way that would happen, you know, 8 years down the line. GPs are much better educated, they know how to spot the symptoms, and I got hundreds of emails because I'm a life coach now through my life coaching website, hundreds of emails of women who were stuck in exactly the same place that I was.
Well, it was sort of the progression was that your husband, you both worked in TV, he works in TV, and you ended up going and living in the Wirral for a while.
That's right,
And saying that that's when you felt that, you know, that your weight you were up to 19 stone.
Oh yes.
And that you'd hit rock bottom.
Yeah, really. But I think, you know, in a way, I was so ill and I couldn't think straight. It was almost like I was existing from day to day,
well,
really,
these
to be
heavy
honest.
periods continued, and continued so much that you were concerned and went to A&E.
I did,
and were sent back from A&E.
Yeah, yeah.
And then your husband was concerned so much that you went back in again, and by which stage you'd lost 5 of your 8 pints of blood.
Yeah, and I was blue.
I didn't even know that was possible, and you could still be alive.
Yeah, I mean, and it's such a shame in a way that it had to end on such a dramatic note when it could have been diagnosed so much earlier, just with a bit more knowledge from a GP.
And it was found by, thank goodness, a GP who really saved your life.
Yeah, I mean, when eventually I was in A&E for 3 days having a blood transfusion, they ran lots and lots of tests on me. But again, even while I was on the hospital ward, they were discussing giving me a hysterectomy. So I was still sort of lying there, and I would have signed it, for sure, you know, because I just wanted to get better, you know.
Yeah, to make you well.
So still, even at that point, you know, that it was still, oh, well, you know, you had a miscarriage, you know, a year and a bit ago, so we'll focus on that, and it must be sort of a gynecological issue. And then luckily when I came out, the tests that they'd taken at the hospital got sent to the GP, looked at the results, and then of course it was blatantly obvious that I had a massively underactive thyroid.
Well, the medication is was a little bit hit and miss. You've got to get the dose right, and then you were referred to a specialist.
Well, I paid to go privately to see a specialist because with the best will in the world, GPs are on time slots, aren't they? And while my GP managed, you know, getting regular blood tests and basically sorting out my medication, I needed somebody who studied this as a life's work. You know, somebody who understood what I was going through on an emotional level. And he was the first person that ever sort of sat me down and said, you know, you will get better, you know. And I just thought, burst into tears. Oh my God, he was the first person really that sort of said that to me.
Chris, this is something you feel very strongly about.
Yeah, I feel very strongly about underactive thyroid disease. Because, you know, your story is absolutely classic. As you know, you've heard from so many other patients. Let me first of all just describe the symptoms for the viewers, and they should come up on the screen. Now, this is a collection of the sort of more common symptoms in underactive thyroid. Tiredness, which can be very extreme, weight gain, constipation, hoarse voice, intolerance to the cold. You don't like the cold weather. And the next page, puffy face, eyes and ankles, dry skin, you know them all, don't you?
Oh, yes.
Thinning hair, brittle nails. Interesting, the outer third of the eyebrows goes. You can diagnose underactive thyroid from a patient's face. They also have a strawberry and cream complexion, colouring. So thinning hair, brittle nails, heavy periods, miscarriage, poor memory, concentration, depression. There are over 90 symptoms of underactive thyroid. Now, what concerns me, patient goes along to see the GP. Oh yes, we'll do some blood tests. Does blood tests on thyroid hormone, and they come back normal. Now, we're getting away from using the word normal range, calling it a reference range, because what's normal for you may not be what's normal on the laboratory result. And, you know, a professor trained me as a student, and he said, listen to the patient. They will tell you the diagnosis, not the piece of paper from the lab. So women out there who have gone to the GP, had normal results, been told they're normal, they need to go back and discuss this further with your GP, because there are extra tests can be done on blood which will clinch the diagnosis, or ask to be referred to an endocrinologist. A lot of doctors now writing the BMJ are saying patients with symptoms, they're telling you what they've got wrong with them and the blood test is normal. Do a trial of thyroid hormone treatment, slowly increasing the dose over a period of 3 months, which will do no harm, and this will transform patients, it really will.
Well, this can be mistaken for other things, can't it?
Well, I'm concerned about the patients labelled with chronic fatigue syndrome, ME, fibromyalgia, even patients with celiac disease might also have an underactive thyroid. So, you know, if you've got any of those symptoms or other symptoms that I've not even covered, you could have an underactive thyroid. GP, and you're not just going to base it on 1 or 2 simple thyroid hormone tests, because if it's in their normal range, you still could have an underactive thyroid.
So if you think there's something wrong, stand strong.
Yes.
And just really hit home that you want further checks to be done.
How do you feel now?
Well, you know, it was a negative thing that happened to me, but I think, you know, with everything, everyone has bad things that happen in their lives, don't they? And so, you know, learn from it, and I've turned it into a positive thing, and You know, through life coaching, I can help other people who are suffering big challenges in their lives. So, you know, yes, it was negative, but, you know, luckily I've managed to turn it into a
no side effects, or are you fully recovered?
Yeah, I am fully recovered. I mean, I have to take medication every day, but that's a small price to pay for life. Yeah.
So what?
Yeah, but you know, the option's not being here, so, you know, it's worth it.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks.